So let's call Barry Trotz, GM of the Nashville Predators. He doesn't work in Nashville. He works for Vandelay Industries. He's the importer-exporter, doing both at the same time today, acquiring Jason Zucker from the Arizona Coyotes in exchange for a 2024 sixth-round pick. Now, that pick belongs to the Dallas Stars. So more or less, essentially, this becomes a super late sixth-round pick, more or less a seventh. And they get Zucker really for free 99 is what this is, because they take on all $5.3 million of his cap hit. So the salary is off the books for the Coyotes, which is important to save some bucks if you can. And for the Preds, they continue to kind of dink and dunk here. I told you deadline neutral. Is that the term they use, Tyler, when describing the Preds? And so deadline neutral, I think, is probably a pretty good way to explain it. When you trade out Yakov Trenin, you bring in Anthony Beauvillier and also Jason Zucker. Some would call it nibbling around the edges. I say maybe some smart upgrades for a team that, with UC Saros in net, could be a live dog when it comes to round one.
Not importing and exporting latex products like George Costanza, but depth forwards is what Barry Trotz is moving in and out. Frank, just while we have you for a second, you spoke yesterday about how things were trending towards being a buyer's market. Have the first 2 hours of our deadline show confirmed that? And do you think that's a trend we'll see continue in the final 2 hours?
Yeah, look, I think some of the prices were quite literally ridiculous. As recently as a week ago. The Arizona Coyotes were looking for a first-round pick for Matt Dumba. They were looking for a second-round pick for Jason Zucker. With both those guys, I saw more mid-round selections, and maybe they were thinking they could get a second if they retained pretty heavily on Zucker. I thought even then, probably a bit of a stretch. But what you're seeing now is we are 2 hours and 2 minutes away from the deadline. Teams like Arizona, they had gone into this thinking, we are not keeping any of our pending UFAs. If we could just, even get anything for them, we're unloading everything we can. This is a fire sale. So you don't want to be left holding the bag. And if it means sixth round pick, I don't know how consequential that's going to be for a team that feels like they have 30 in the first 3 rounds over the next 3 years. But nonetheless, I think more important for them to move off of Zucker. And you think about 22% of the season remaining, 22% of $5.3 million in real cash. It's still $1 million plus out the door in real money. That means something to the bottom line.
Fair enough. There you go. Frank Seravalli on the Wendy's Insider Cam. We'll let you get back to working on the news. Frank, his Insider Cam brought to you by Wendy's. And how about this for a little sneaky good deadline pickup for you, the listener? $3.49 for a 6-piece nuggets at Wendy's. Why not? And don't forget, Wendy's is letting you win real food with your fantasy teams this year with the Wendy's Daily Face-Off Survivor Pool Monday to Saturday Survivor Contest. You can make your picks and potentially win $5,000 at the end of the year and a handful of great Wendy's prizes throughout the season as well. Under the radar moves, the theme of the show at the moment, as we bring back in our main panel of Carter Hutton and Colby Cohen. Gentlemen, we are, as you can see behind me, 7 seconds away from the final 2 hours of the program. Jason Zucker goes to Nashville for a 6. They added Beauvillier as well, sacrificed Trenin in the process. Do you give this Nashville team, when you look at them, pretty much locked into being a wild card team, they're going to play a division leader either out of the Pacific or the Central? Carter, do you give the Preds any hope of winning a playoff series, or can I use the old Daryl Sutter line that's become so famous? Is this going to be a waste of 8 days for the Preds?
No, I think you got to give them a chance, right? I know that they're undermined, but when you talk about 3 players for me that can make a difference come playoff time, it's Philip Forsberg, it's Roman Josi, and it's UC Saros. UC Saros is a guy that can steal hockey games. I know he's been on the trading block. They've talked about him being moved, and they've come out and said that if they're in a playoff spot, they're going to keep him. But he is a goalie that I've spent time with. Pretty much the reason why I left Nashville. I had a chance to extend my career in Nashville by 1 year. I wanted to. Goalie coach Ben Vanderklok kind of came up and told me, UC Saros is coming. No matter what happens, he's coming up to the NHL, and I had skated with him. This guy's the real deal, and I know any team would love to have him, but in a playoff series, anything can happen. And for me, these are ads that didn't cost a lot. It gives them a bit of depth. Beauvillier experiment hasn't worked out in Chicago. I think going there, he can come and play. Zucker has playoff experience, a veteran guy, can score goals. It adds some depth. This is a team that, there's not expectations on, and that's always dangerous when it comes to the playoffs. And for those 3 players can make a difference. And you never know that Nashville crowd. I've been there in the playoffs, so I've played in the playoffs. We've had some success, and it's a tough building to go into and try to win hockey games when that Nashville crowd is bearing down on you. There's times where I wasn't even playing and I was exhausted after the game just from the mentality, the crowd, and the energy in that building. And Barry Trotz knows that, and keep this team. He wants to keep this team involved in the playoffs and keep the fans used to playoff hockey, because moving forward, they want to build on this.
Cole, what do you make of the Preds?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with you, Carter, on this, and here's the reason why. I look at the goaltending situation, and while I agree with you that UC Saros is, one of these true number 1 goaltenders in the NHL, and we've come to learn that not every team has one. Okay, these are like starting quarterbacks in the NFL. There's a dozen of them, or maybe a few more, and everybody else is always looking to upgrade. So I look at that wild card situation, and whether they finish in the first wild card or the second wild card, chances are they're going to see Dallas, or they're going to see Vancouver. And I look at the goaltending matchups in those series, and whether it's Jake Ottinger or whether it's Thatcher Demko, I think both of those goaltenders can do the same thing you're talking about as UC Saros. I think those are 2 big-time goaltenders who are also able to steal games and steal a series. And then I look at the rest of the lineups, and I look at the matchups. And while Roman Josi is one of my favorite players to watch in the NHL, the dynamic ability for him to get up and down the ice, transport the puck. He's as good north-south as he is east-west. And sometimes you see a guy who can play east-west, but maybe not north-south, or vice versa. I just think that, look at Quinn Hughes. He can play that type of game. Look at Dallas, Miro Heiskanen. He can play that type of game. So while I do agree with you that the atmosphere is amazing, I've actually gone to that building during the playoffs before. I called Winnipeg against Nashville Game 7 years ago on Westwood One for the radio, and got to really feel the energy in that building. Although that game didn't go well and the crowd was kind of taken out of it early, I know what you mean, right? It's an exciting place to be. It can be distracting for a road team. But at the end of the day, I just look at the lineup and I look at the depth down the middle. And I really think that when you're a wild card team in the West and you're playing one of those heavies, you're going to have a difficult time matching up down the middle and really on that second, third pair after Roman Josi. I don't think that they would have the horses. So I do think they'll get in, but I don't think it will be a long stay in the playoffs for the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, you look at the playoff picture right now in the West, it almost feels like it's kind of locked up here as we approach the NHL trade deadline. Gentlemen, I'm going to set you off to the side, and we are going to grade this trade. It's the first one we got in a little bit. Matt Larkin chomping at the bit. Trade grades brought to you by Betano. The game starts now at betano.ca. Matt Larkin, give me a grade for Nashville. Give me a grade for Arizona.
Okay, Tyler, I'm going to get a little metaphorical here. Okay, so Nashville, it's a B+, but they turned in kindergarten work when the acquisition cost, aside from the actual money, the $5.3 million cap hit, that's big, but a 6th-round pick, okay, fine. That's pretty much nothing for a guy coming off a 27-goal season. That said, it's not going to be an A, because if you look at Jason Zucker in the playoffs, experienced, but not productive, 8 goals in 46 games in the playoffs. So you're not getting necessarily a huge needle mover there. Maybe he's going to be a decent addition to the top 9. That's fine. You got to give the Predators a chance because they went on that hot run ever since Andrew Brunette. He canceled that trip to the Sphere, and then Nashville went on that heater. They created that separation. They're looking good to make the playoffs. Okay, fine. You give them a body. From Arizona's standpoint, it's kind of like I'm the teacher here, right, Tyler? So the dog ate their homework. I'm trying to be nice. I'm giving them a D+ here. There wasn't much they could do. It's an absolute buyer's market today. And yes, like Frank said, they're saving some real money. We're getting close to the 11th hour here. So Bill Armstrong, good on you for getting literally anything for Jason Zucker. So D+. You're just going to get a passing grade from me. You don't have to take the course again.
Can you give me just a grade on the Predators deadline season or deadline season as a whole here? Couple adds, couple sells. What do you make of this?
Well, to me, they are one of the more confounding franchises in the league. And I said that in the summer because you jettison Matt Duchene, you jettison Ryan Johansson, you're bringing in a new GM. I thought that Nashville was finally ready to stop being mid and bouncing around that playoff bubble, and they were going to be willing to bottom out. But then, of course, you bring in Ryan O'Reilly, you bring in Luke Schenn, you're bringing Gustav Nyquist, and then you're just adding more bodies to keep yourself in the murky middle. And just the idea of sending out Yakov Trenin and bringing in Jason Zucker, it's kind of so fittingly Nashville, right? You're just sort of moving that revolving door, bodies in, bodies out, and you're just staying in the middle. So to me, if I'm a Predators fan, I don't love these moves. Yes, you're going to probably make the playoffs, but to me, the Predators are one of the furthest teams away from the Stanley Cup. They don't have great prospects overall in their system. They're just consistently competitive, and they're a victim of that. They just can't let go of the idea that, oh, we need to make the playoffs and just get in. It's not about that. If you want to win a Stanley Cup, you got to go backwards to go forward.
Yeah, kind of like take 1 or 2 steps backward to maybe one day take 3, 4, 5 steps forward. Matt Larkin with trade grades for Botano. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Tyler.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.